Let's take a look at this. This is California Gold. It's another Patrick Stevens game through Numbskull, which is his company, but I think he stopped publishing and moved just to trying to do design, which makes a lot of sense to me. I can't imagine publishing. Now, this is a playtest version that he compiled. I'm not quite sure when the game is due out. It's listed as published in 2015, but I'm not absolutely certain that it's stocked or whatever at this point. He sold it through a Kickstarter project, and I think it got the green light there. And this is what he was able to send me. I'm not quite sure of the provenance of this copy. It could well be he expects that I'll return it to him at Consim Expo, which he sometimes makes it to, or to an agent of his, as it were. And that's fine. It'll give me a chance to play it here, and as well with my wife, whose eyes kind of lit up a little bit when she saw this. You know, it doesn't, it's not covered with military units, and it looks fairly light. Anyway, the fact that it's a playtest copy is something you should keep in mind, that the components aren't quite at the quality you'd expect. For example, I believe it'll have a mounted board. Numbskull usually puts out good boards. This is one of the first and only times you'll see me using Plexi with a game. It's because this was delivered to me in a roll, and it kind of wouldn't lay flat. So Plexi is the answer to that. My Plexi is a little fuzzy. The map's cleaner looking than what we see here. It's a scratched up piece I got out of the garbage. I washed the dust off of it, but that's about as far as it goes. Also, for this version, there's a 6 players pieces. I think the game is only going to handle 5 players certainly in the current rules set, which doesn't look complete. I saw at least one typo that probably would be caught before production, a minor one. I don't remember what it was. Doesn't really affect anything. The rules seemed clear and understandable from what I've got. Each player has their own little plaid, which tells you what their different actions and such not are. There's going to be 2 decks of cards. One deck here is different orange groves, and they'll indicate a type of orange on them, which is indicated by the letter. It may also be indicated by this symbol here. The W stands for navel oranges, because they're Washington navel oranges. And then there's V's, I assume, for the Valencia, which seems a little silly to me. I could see using N's and V's because they're more different, maybe? I don't know. And then these, which are going to be farm reports, which are news cards, and the players are going to have a handful of these, which will help affect the play throughout the game. The goal of the game is, well, the topic of the game is that you are a cooperative of various orange producers, and your goal is to become such a big cooperative that you kind of outshine and overshadow all the others. You're going to have a number of different things that you can do to influence that. The agency office, you can lobby politically, you can get yourself involved in different farming techniques that are more advanced. You can perform advertising contracts. All of these things, well, not the agency offices perhaps, but these things are going to be influencing these cards. Some of those cards will come up and they'll be affected by whether you put an investment in that particular thing or not, and what you'll get off of it. You're going to be trying to assemble sets, as it were, of different orange groves. And those sets will combine up for a couple of different reasons, which we'll see in terms of producing income primarily, and that income will help you in terms of investments. Okay, so you know what, I haven't dug out, I've got to get some money for the game that I haven't dug out yet. The eventual production, I guess, is going to come with paper money, but there's a suggestion, of course, to use poker chips. I don't have any good poker chips, unfortunately. The board itself, let's see, what does this number mean on the number? This is going to be number of railroads? That doesn't make sense. I think that's going to be the number of groves that are present in that particular place and the types of oranges that are produced. So, for example, here we have Valencia oranges. Trying to see whether this, I think this is the W. It's hard to read in the light that I've got. One reason I'm not using the black color, other than the game only says it holds 5, is that would be really difficult for me to distinguish from the blue. The actual railroads are marked across here, although that's a W for Washington. The actual railroads are listed here, and those are going to service the various groves, and we'll see how that works out. Why don't we take a look at a grove? So this grove is going to tell you what it produces, what counties it's in, and which railroad runs close enough to it that it would service it. The railroads are an important factor in here. Another thing that we kind of missed because I threw the rules over it is you've got to worry about your workers' conditions. Okay. So, you're going to start off with 20 bucks, a packing house. So we've got these different little buildings here. I believe orange is used for the packing house, green is going to be nurseries, and gray is going to be your agency. And your agency can only go, you can only have one of these at a time. In a sense, you don't really need one because what you do is you're going to be putting a disc with an agency on top of it. These are probably extra pieces in a sense because a disc will work fine there. It's what's used in the other places as well. So I probably won't even use the agency. But the other buildings go actually on the board in the counties, and they're going to, they have a certain geographical value to them. In particular, the groves being in a certain place has an effect on how you group them for scoring, for income. You're each going to start, well, you start with your little meep meep, or meeple. My wife calls them meep meeps. So, up here in the optimal conditions, that's going to degrade over time. And you get 6 of these event cards in your hand. And you're going to have some choice as to how to play them. And then the grove cards are going to be dealt out across the top of the board to indicate where the different locations are. So now, if this was our starting situation, you can see we got 3 over here in Kern County. And they all appear to be the same company. A couple in Riverside and one in Ventura. And that provides sort of the groundwork for where you want to set up your different where you want to focus during the game, because you're going to be able to draft from there. Okay, then you begin with a start player, and that person is going to be allowed to take a packing house and their chip, and we're going to go normal counterclockwise, and put it somewhere they want. So for example, here, there's 3 in Kern County. I will probably be able to get one of those, so I'll put it there. And we go all the way around doing that. And then whoever was the last person to put a packing house on the board is going to become the first player and gets the first player token, which I guess is going to be this cube. And that would be the white player the way I play with counterclockwise. But I believe at the end of the turn, the first player chit passes clockwise. So actually, this is kind of weird. It doesn't end up serpentine. It ends up, this guy would go first, then blue goes second. So it's kind of a bone to whoever's in the second to last position, right? Let me make sure that's correct. during the administrative phase that it passes clockwise, or counterclockwise in my case, because that seems a little strange. I would have expected it to go serpentine. Yeah, it's passed clockwise. So there's definitely a benefit to the guy who goes last, but otherwise the first person who gets to place gets kind of a bonus. Okay, now on your turn, you're going to be collecting up these cards, and you're going to set them up, I don't know, kind of as a tableau in front of you is what they use, but basically you're setting them up into little melds as far as it goes. And those melds you can rearrange at will. The reason you want them in sets of 3 is that if you have an advertising contract, every set of 3 is worth $1 towards your advertising setup. And if you have railroad contracts, every set of 3 is going to be worth $2. But in that case, the sets of you have to match 2 things there. You have to get the railroad. You have to have a choo-choo on the railroad, which you can only acquire if you have the set of 3, and you have to have the set of 3 groves along that railroad. And it takes an action to activate that. And each of those sets is going to be worth $2 when the railroad produces. Doesn't matter if you have a mix of different orange types there. Now, when it's your turn, and one person's the first player, they'll go first in each round of turns. When it's your turn, you get to do a regular action, and then everybody else gets to do a regular action. Then you get to do some supplemental actions if you've got any earned. And those are going to come from some of your special buildings or otherwise. Okay, your actions that you're allowed to take. You can build a building. This can be a packing house, a nursery, or an agency. You put it on a chip of your color in any county. But the agency goes over in the agency box, which is why I'm saying you don't really need the little building token for that. You're only allowed 1 chip in there, or 1 building in there anyway, so you could just put your 1 chip in there. And it gives you an advantage later on. You can add a member to your co-op. What you do is you grab one of these groves up here, and you put it over into your tableau. This doesn't cost you anything. However, you can only do it if you have a packing house in the county, like this one. And each packing house can only service 3 groves. So it has to be a packing house with capacity still on it. Another option you have for your turn is you can collect dues. When you collect dues, each Valencia card that you have gets you $1. Each naval card gets you $2. Each of your chips in the advertising box is worth $1 per set of any 3 grove cards in your tableau. And I think you need an advertising chip for each set of 3 cards that you have out there. Each train that you have actively running is going to be worth $2 at this point. And if you have the majority of the running trains in a railway contract, then you get an extra $2 for that. So money isn't the object of the game, but it's the lubricant of the game, as it were. So you do want to generate some of it. There's no question in that from what I can see. Now, if there's a crop freeze currently in play, I think I forgot something about the turn. Yeah. So the play sequence, the first player, before he takes his turn, plays a farm report card and then takes a replacement for it. And that's how these events kind of are handled, is you have the ability to influence and to have some awareness of what the events that at least you're going to bring into play are going to be. So you can kind of prepare for them by dealing with things like working conditions, production amenities, and stuff like that to make sure that you fit at least what you're aiming at. Okay. So let's jump back here. So these sets can mix the different orange types. Now, here's the thing. When there's a freeze, navel oranges don't produce at all. So if you try to... Where did I get here? If you try to collect dues, your navels won't produce their $2 each while there's a freeze. And these other things, if you're advertising or if you're using trains, you can't count those sets towards advertising or your trains. And in fact, any trains that are available that don't match sets because of the freezing weather, navel, if they have any navel oranges in their set, get turned over. Now, people can rearrange their sets to make sure that they have the maximal number of them that they can produce within the restrictions of they have to have the grove on the right railway, for example. Another option you can take for your turn, these are all singular options you can use as your turn, is you can remove all of these and put 6 new ones up. And these guys go into the discard pile. And I believe when the piles are depleted, they get reshuffled. Okay, now the next actions, numbers 5 through 8, are allowed as normal actions, but they're also allowed as a supplementary action if you have an agency office. You'll be allowed to take a second action after everybody's taken their first action, and again in the same order. And these actions include placing a train. If you have the appropriate meld of the right kind of train company and a set of 3 groves that haven't been hooked up to a railway yet, you can slap a new train down. It doesn't cost you anything, and that'll improve your income. You can pay $5 or $10 for an advertising level. You put a chip of your color in the contracts box, and the payments here will benefit you during collect dues. You won't be allowed to take that benefit until the next turn, though. Which I don't know how much that really means. It means that you won't get any money from them until the player turn order cube moves. Lobbying, you can pay $5 or $10 to lobby either at the regional or national level. No, I'm sorry, that's advertising. Either at the county or state level. And what do those do for you? Those are going to affect some of the farm report cards, and you can put 1 chip in each level of the lobbying box. Those chips disappear when the elections are called in. The advertising disappears when the advertising farm report card gets played. And I don't think there's a limit to how many of those chips you can put, except that you can only you have to have a meld of 3 of oranges to each chip that you throw in there. Why would you want regional versus national? I don't know, but I bet you more of the cards remove regional advertising than remove national. Production amenities, you can pay $5 to put a chip for one of these, and these each have special cards that may remove them, but also give you an advantage for having bought them. Okay, now option 9 looks like it's not one of these special agency actions. This is move a packing house. You pay $1 to move an unused packing house, i.e. one that has no groves associated with it, to another county. When you move this to another county, it's not available for an add new member until the following turn. That's the same as the other action, which was to buy a building. Buying doesn't cost you any money. Just costs you an action. And as an option, you can also just pass if you don't have anything you want to do. That seems highly unlikely, though. It seems to me there's always going to be something you want to do. But it's there. Okay, the buildings. Oh, they do have a cost. Okay, to build a new packing house costs you $5. And you can build it in any county. To build a new... and we know what they do. They allow you to grab these cards in that county. To build a new nursery, mercenary? Do we have a price here? It doesn't look like we have a, oh, we do have a price. The price is the number of the county on the board. Okay, so that number is going to be the cost for a nursery there, which is quite high in Los Angeles. You pay that amount and put a nursery chip on a chip. The nurseries are these green little Monopoly houses. The orange ones look kind of like old-style Monopoly hotels, except they're the wrong color. I don't know if they ever made orange ones. They certainly didn't make gray ones, though. I say with an authority that I don't deserve. Because I'm not absolutely positive, but I don't think so. I don't think they made orange ones either. The benefit of a nursery means that instead of, or in addition to, whatever action you might take with your agency office, if you have any nurseries, you can add a member as a bonus action in one of the counties in which you have a nursery. But you still have to meet all the other requirements, i.e. you have to have the packing house and this, that, and the other. So they become kind of a difficult kind of thing to consider. And the agency building is going to cost you $10. Nursery doesn't seem to cost any. Oh, it costs based on there. $10 for an agency. And you can only have one at a time. That's going to give you the bonus supplemental action. You're allowed to do a supplemental action for your nurseries, one, and one for your agency in the same turn. And then at the end of the turn, you have an administrative phase. With the first player token passes, the workers lose a slot of working conditions. We haven't seen how to raise them. Then you're allowed to improve working conditions, and we'll get to that in a moment. And then the new first player gets to play a farm report. I'm not sure if the first player in the game gets to play a farm report. See. The last player now becomes the first player and gets the token. Yeah, I'm not sure if he gets to play a farm report first thing in the game. I think the first player turn doesn't actually get a farm report. Okay. That's how we're reading that. Okay. And what do we got here? Elsewhere, okay, the administrative, the working conditions. So, for your working conditions, it's going to cost you based on the number of packing houses you have. If you want to raise your working conditions, each level you want to raise it costs you $1 times the number of packing houses you have. So if you have just one packing house and you're down here, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 gets you all the way up. But if you have like 4 packing houses, it'll cost you $20 to go from the worst up to the top. And the effect of these is when there's a strike, this is what bad things happen to you. You go down every turn, but you can pay to buy it up, giving them additional amenities. And this is like no dues for the next round only. You can't acquire a grove, but then some of these you lose things that might be of value to you. And you probably don't want to get it down there. Like, you know, just not being able to collect dues or not being able to acquire a grove is probably okay. Losing things is probably not so okay, because you can find something else to do other than these. The farm report cards themselves, we're going to deal with them, but basically they sit up, face up until they're resolved or ignored as applicable. If the deck is exhausted, the discards are reshuffled. And some of them, I'll repeat the last farm report card. Yeah, see, there's 4 regional and 2 national advertising cards. At the end, the game is going to end when somebody reaches a specified number of groves. And that's limited by the number of players. In 5 players, we're going to be talking about 12 groves. And that wins the game. Well, that ends the game. The winner is the person with the most groves. However, you do finish the current round of play. Now, what's kind of weird is this is going to be the actual first player to go if this guy starts the turn. So the round is going to be each player getting 1 turn. All right. Let's see how this is. I believe this is how it's set up. Each player may perform one of the following on a turn. Yeah. So the round is what's judged by the administrative phase. So everybody's going to get an action or more in each round. Each player gets turns within that round. That's what it seems to be. That's what the wording would suggest, but a little bit on game courtesy here. Most things are open knowledge, but not your farm report cards. Those are specifically forbidden from being shown. And you may not look at the discard piles in the game. All right. Well, this should be fairly easy, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing it right now, is I think I can probably get through this, if not tonight and tomorrow, but I have to get back to Hoplite soon. All right, let's get started on this one.